Good afternoon, guys. We're going to start the last fifth unit, and in this unit we have a digestive system, urinary system, and the reproductive system. And we have today the first part of the digestive system, which is chapter 23. Uh, the we'll cover digestive system in two lectures today and next week. And I have posted the reading PowerPoint and the recorded lab section of digestive system already in your canvas. Sorry. So the main function of the digestive system is to break down food particles into smaller subunit so that your body can absorb and use it. And whatever is not digested or broken down can be excreted in the form of feces. So digestion, absorption, and excretion is the function of digestive system. Digestive system organ is an open organ. If I put the carb in a plate and then enzyme to digest, it is open outside. Our digestive system is also open because one end it is open to mouth and another end it is open to anus. So it is open-ended system. It is not closed system like cardiovascular system. It is open. Okay. So in the first part of digestive system today, we're going to talk about what are the organs and then anatomy, gross anatomy and histology of those organs and their orientation inside the body. So digestive system is the system which is like a tubular organ. So it is a tube which is a start from your mouth and ends at the anus, like it is open-ended, like urinary system, reproductive system, respiratory system. These all are open-ended, but other system has only one opening. But digestive system has two end opening, complete open system. Okay. So digestive system, we're going to talk about an overview, which is digestive process. So in process of digestion and absorption, what are the processes which help in digestion and absorption? Then we'll talk about abdominal regions, because to identify the structure inside the abdomen from outside, you're not going to open the abdomen every time and look inside. So you have a boundary and you divide abdominal region in 9 regions, which we did in very first lecture, and we're going to do it again to identify an average idea where exact the different abdominal organs lies. Okay. So in the anatomy of the alimentary canal, we're going to talk about the histology, from their mouth to anus associated organs like mouth, lips, cheeks, the plate, the palate, the tongue, the teeth, and the salivary glands. Okay. So before we go to other parts, let me tell you one thing. The digestive system organ is divided into 2 groups. And that is the alimentary canal, which is also, alimentary canal, which is also called gastrointestinal tract. Or sometimes we call it in short GI tract. Okay. So GI tract is the tube from mouth to anus. So what are those? Mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, and large intestine. Anus and other parts are the continuation of large intestine. So alimentary canal put food in the tube and then they break them down and then break by mechanical force as well as with the help of enzyme they break them further down. On the other hand, accessory digestive organs are on the side of the tube and they are connected to the tube through the duct and they produce and deliver enzymes and other secretion which helps in digestion chemically of the food we have eaten. So what are those digestive accessory organs? They are teeth, tongue, gallbladder, salivary glands, liver, and pancreas. Okay. So main function of the digestive system again is to digest, means to break down complex molecules into simple and to absorb. Okay. So let's see the organs of the digestive system, and I'm going to put a piece of bread in mouth and you will see how they digest it and get out of the anal canal, and at the same time I will explain the organs and their function. So let's see first the organs of alimentary canal. Here is mouth, and here is pharynx. Pharynx continues with esophagus. Esophagus is in thoracic cavity. Now it passed through the diaphragm behind the liver, get into abdominal cavity and then enlarge. That enlarged lower part of the esophagus is called a stomach. Then a stomach again constrict and becomes less diameter coiled long tube. That is called small intestine. The small intestine has three parts. The first part is called duodenum. Second part, middle part is called jejunum, and the terminal part is called ileum or ileum. Then ileum again enlarge in diameter and becomes the cecum. Then cecum ascends, which is the ascending colon. Then it transverse to your body, that is called transverse colon, and then descending colon, then sigmoid colon, which is like letter S, and then rectum, anal canal, and anus. And these all large intestine part is also called colon. So large intestine are these all parts. And there is offshoot finger-like projection of the cecum, which is called vermiform appendix. It has not the role in digestive system, but it is the part of lymphatic system. Okay. So these are the alimentary canal organs. Now, accessory organs, which I said earlier, lies on the side of this tube, like in your mouth. There are 6 salivary glands, 3 in each side of your face, around and inferior to the ear is paraotic. Paraotic means parotid. Under the mandible, submandibular. Under your tongue, sublingual, and together we call salivary glands. This is one of the accessory organs. Similarly, in the oral cavity, you have tongue, which is another accessory organs, which mix, manipulate, and move the food, what you put in your mouth. Before that, there is in the lips, upper and lower lips, in the mandible, and the maxilla, you have teeth. Those are also accessory organs. Then there is no accessory organs in the thoracic cavity. Once you pass into the abdominal cavity, then there is the largest gland in the body, liver, which I said earlier, connected to your small intestine through the bile duct. There is gallbladder, which also receives bile from liver and stores and join the hepatic duct, which is the duct of the liver, and becomes the bile duct, which ultimately together joins the duodenum. first part of the small intestine. Behind the small intestine and the large intestine and pancreas, you can see, stomach, you see another gland that is called pancreas. Pancreas is also another accessory organs of the digestive system, which connects the duodenum through pancreatic duct and drain a lot of enzymes which helps in digestion of food we eat. Here is a spleen. A spleen is in the abdominal cavity, but it is not the accessory organs of digestive system. Okay, so these are the organs of alimentary canal and accessory digestive organs. And in the exam, if I ask which one of the following is the part of the digestive system but not the part of alimentary canal or accessory organs of the digestive system, you need to know. So let's see, when we put a piece of bread in your mouth, your teeth first cut it, grind it, make a smaller piece. Then you increase the surface area of food, mix with saliva from salivary glands, your tongue move it, manipulate it, make the bolus, then it passes through the esophagus. The salivary amylase partially digest your carb, then it passes through the esophagus by peristalsis movement, contraction, get into your stomach. Stomach has a lot of acid, water, and some protein digesting enzymes which partially digest protein and inhibits the digestion of salivary amylase. Then it passes into the duodenum. In duodenum, there is fat digesting bile from liver comes through the gallbladder, and fat, protein, and carb digestive enzymes comes from pancreas, which deliver into duodenum. And from there, chemical digestion starts, break down them in smaller particles. Then it comes into the small intestine like jejunum and ileum. In the wall of jejunum and ileum, there is brush border enzymes which further digest the nutrients and make them simple units of the nutrients like simple sugar, amino acid, fatty acid, and glycerol, and break down like calcium, phosphate, magnesium, everything in simple molecules. So blood vessels around these small intestine and lymphatic vessels around these intestine can absorb the nutrients and send to either liver or to your heart and circulate all over the body. Whatever is not digested and absorbed pass from a small intestine to the large intestine absorb most of the water, and then whatever is left in the form of feces that passes down. This is the generalized idea of the digestive system, organs, and processes. Okay. So, as I said, all the processes in earlier. So, what are the processes? Digestive processes are here. There are like 6 digestive processes. Digestive processes are activities of the intestinal tract. So, here it is the intestinal tract from mouth to anus, and you have 6 processes. So, what are those? The first process is you have a food, you are putting food in your mouth, that is called ingestion. Ingestion is to intake food in your mouth. Once you take food in mouth and you chew it, you mix with saliva, it becomes bolus, and then bolus passes through the pharynx, from the pharynx into the esophagus. And then esophagus has some involuntary muscles, smooth muscles. Those muscles start contracting and relaxing, and that contraction and relaxation, alternating contraction and relaxation, which is called peristalsis, they propel the bolus down into the stomach, and that is called propulsion. This propulsion start into pharynx and it continues till it comes outside through the anus. It is continuous because the wall of the GI tract had same plan from mouth to the anus. We're going to talk about histology later. Okay, so in the propulsion, you see there is pharyngeal swallowing, which is voluntary oropharynx. Then peristalsis in the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, and large intestine. That is second processes. At the same time, after ingestion and propulsion in this area, there is some digestion. Digestion are mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Okay, mechanical digestion means you break down the food particle in a smaller particle with the help of mechanical force. For example, chewing food here is mechanical digestion in mouth. Then it comes into the stomach, and stomach has churning movement, like movement when you put your cloths to dry in the dryer machine, and you look one time through the glass of the dryer machine door. You can see how dryer machine is moving the clothes from all sides so it can dry all parts of the clothes. Our stomach does exactly the same thing. It like turn around the food from all sides, so each side of the particles have contact with the enzymes and the acid. That is called the churning in the stomach. Then it get into stomach. Stomach has like 2 points contraction. So when 2 point contracts, whatever is content in the middle, they mix. That is segmentation. So these all are called mechanical digestion of the food particle. It starts in your mouth and it continues in your small intestine. But from the mouth to anus, from the mouth to the small intestine, there is breakdown of food particle in smaller subunits with the help of enzymes, and that is called chemical digestion. So in the mouth, what is the chemical digestion, by the way?
Salivary amylase.
Salivary amylase, very good. Salivary amylase digest the starch. Then in the stomach, there is chemical digestion like pepsin digest protein, peptides. In the intestine, there is digestion of all fat, protein, carb from the enzymes coming from the pancreas or enzymes which is found in the epithelium of the small intestine, which is called cross border enzymes. And that those are also called the uh, chemical digestion. Okay. Then the next processes in the digestion is digestive process is absorption. So when I have written here, I think where I have written here. Okay, so you guys can see in digestive processes, what are they? And before that, when we digest, I have talked about all function of the function to digest and absorb. To digest means to break down food into smaller nutrients by physical and chemical means. Simple forms of nutrients are simple sugar, glucose, fructose, galactose. Protein simple form are amino acid, and lipid or fat are fatty acid and glycerol. So you can go back and check these notes. I have written this. Okay. So once the particles are turned into that smaller particles, then you can see the food particle move from intestinal wall into the capillaries or into the lymph vessels. When so the end product of carbohydrate and protein, which is the simple sugar, glucose, fructose, and galactose for sugar, and amino acid or dipeptides for the proteins, absorb into capillaries. Whereas fatty acid and glycerols are absorbed into lymphatic vessels. And when fat mix into lymph vessels, because lymph vessels contain lymph tissue fluid, it looks like milk. And the term for milk is lact. That's why we call them lacteals, lactose-like fluid containing vessels. That's why we call them lacteals. And then not everything is absorbed. There is a lot of particles, fibers, undigestible fibers, and other stuff in the food which we don't digest them. We don't absorb them. and that's why the undigested particles becomes feces in the large stage, and we passage them out through the form of a process of defecation. Okay, that is called the defecation. So these are the processes of digestive system. Okay, so the the propulsion has two things: peristalsis and segmentation. How they are different? So peristalsis is the contraction of the muscularis externa, and adjacent part, distal part of the GI tract is relaxed, proximal part is contracted. That's why it is squeezing the uh, content through the GI tract. Okay, so it is like the involuntary rhythmic contraction, and adjacent area is relaxed so that the food contents goes down. Okay, so you see here in three stages of peristalsis. Here, this section is contracted and this distal section is relaxed, and food content is coming down. Now the area which was contracted is now relaxed, and the area which was relaxed earlier is now contracting. So it is putting down and it goes on. This is called peristalsis movement of the GI tract. And it starts in the esophagus and continues till the large intestine. But segmentation is specific to the small intestine. So you can see here is several region of the intestine, small intestine. It is contracted region, relaxed region, contracted region, relaxed region, contracted region, relaxed region. In next section, what do you see? The area which is contracted here is now relaxed, and area which is relaxed, contracted. So what do? You are mixing two sections of the content, and that's how segmentation is rhythmic local contraction of the intestine, and that mix food with digestive processes. Okay, so what does peristalsis and what does segmentation do in real life? So peristalsis, let's see, peristalsis is mainly the function of longitudinal muscles. So in longitudinal muscle, and sorry, both peristalsis and the segmentation is the function of the longitudinal and circular muscle, which will come, you will see. So when you contract through the diameter of the intestine, in that case, you are decreasing the length of the GI tract. That's why the length of GI tract is around 9 meters in the live individual, and dead body will have bigger length because there is no contraction, it is relaxed. Okay, to understand the exactly where intestinal organs are located, we divide our anterior abdominal wall in 9 regions. Do you know when you play tic-tac-toe, you have a 9 squares? Similarly, we divide our abdomen in 9 regions. So what are the criteria? What are the lines drawing which divide them 9 regions? So 2 parallel lines in the mid-clavicular line. You see here? These are the 2 sagittal mid-clavicular line. Pass through the abdomen. And then 2 transverse line. The proximal upper transverse line is transverse line under the last ribs. Okay, so this is under the last ribs, and the lower transverse line is passing through the tubercle of the pelvic bone. Okay? And that is called transtubercle line. And if you draw these 4 lines, then you're going to divide abdomen region into 9 regions. This region is called, both side is called left hypochondriac region. Hypo means below, chondriac means cartilage, so below the rib cartilage. That's why you call it right hypochondriac, left hypochondriac. Epi means above, gastric means belly, abdomen. So it is above the abdomen. That's why we call it epigastric region. Then lumbar is the lateral of parts of your body in the abdomen region. So we call it right lumbar region, left lumbar region, and it is around the umbilicus. So we call it umbilical region. Then the most inferior 3 regions of the abdomen are in the iliac bone region of the hip or inguinal region. So we call it right iliac or right inguinal region and left iliac or left inguinal region. And this is below the gastric, below the stomach. So we call them hypogastric region. Sometimes we call it pubic region too. Lower part particularly is called pubic region. Okay, so basically pubic region is the part in the hypogastric region. So what are the organs in these regions then? Here you go. Some organs are in more than one region and some regions have more than one organs. For example, if you look at this diagram, which organ you see span in more than one region?
The small and large intestine?
The large intestine, the liver, the small intestine, pretty much everything. Okay. So you can see this diagram and see which region has which organ. Like urinary bladder is in the which region?
The pelvic region.
Hypogastric.
Hypogastric region. Good. There is another way to divide anterior abdominal wall surface. Just divide into 4 quadrants and you can identify them. Okay. Now histology of the alimentary canal. So any tubular organs in our body has the same histological plan. So what are the tubular organs in our body? Like GI tract, urinary tract, reproductive tract, respiratory tract, name it. All the tracts have pretty much same plan with some difference. So GI tract start from your mouth and ends at the anus. Here we are taking the typical histology of the tract, particularly taking the structure from the small intestine. And you will see there will be slight difference in different region in the mouth, in the esophagus, in the pharynx, in the intestine, in the anus. There will be slight differences, but the general plan will be the same. Like when you make the building, they all have similar plan, but you can put extra structure inside, but they all are the same architect. When they make their buildings, basic structures are the same. Okay. So the alimentary canal has 4 tunics, 4 layers. The innermost layer is called mucosa. Mucosa is, there are 4 types of basic tissues in our body. Yes. What are those 4 types of basic tissues, guys, you have done?
Epithelial, smooth muscle tissue.
Epithelial, muscle. What is next?
Connective.
Connective, good. What is next?
Skeletal.
Nervous.
Nervous.
So connective, there is epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous tissue. When you remember epithelial tissue, do you remember epithelial tissue has no blood vessels? no blood vessels. So they get nutrition from underlying connective tissue, which is called basement membrane, or what else?
Lamina propria.
Yeah, lamina propria. So usually epithelial tissue has only two layers. They're the layers of the cells and the connective tissue. But in GI tract, it is unusual. There is one more thing in the epithelial layer. So what are those? In mucosa, there is epithelium, single layer of cells here. And then there is lamina propria, which is the connective tissue, which is called basement membrane. And there is extra layer of very thin, smooth muscle layer that is called muscularis mucosae or mucosae. That is unusual. We will talk about what are their function. Okay. And this epithelium lines the lumen, the cavity, the space of the GI tract. You see the lumen? The lumen of the GI tract is connected through the duct, which are outside the tract, which are the accessory organs. So these ducts, you see, connects to the glands in the wall, or ducts connects to the accessory organs, which is outside the wall of the GI tract. Clear? Some of the glands are in the mucosa. Some of the glands are outside the mucosa. Some of the glands ducts drain from the way outside the accessory organs from. Okay. So this is mucosa. Everybody got it? What are the layers of the mucosa and what is this function? At the same time, in the mucosa, you will see some mucosa associated lymphoid tissue. You see these dots. They contains white blood cell to fight infection if anyhow microorganism enters the small intestine. And this is most pronounced in the last part of the small intestine, which is called ileum, because ileum is continuous with the large intestine, which contains feces, which has a lot of bacteria, and that can come into a small intestine and infect your sterile small intestine. That's why these guards are put in position there. Okay, a lot of stuff in the mucosa I have talked about here. After the mucosa, you have second layer that is called submucosa. You see here, this is submucosa. Submucosa is made up of connective tissue, and they are the dense irregular and areolar connective tissue mix. They are like middle of both. So it contains a lot of elastic fibers. That's why when your intestine contract, it relax again, open up due to this area. This submucosa contains a lot of blood vessels, some mucosal glands, and this gives the route for a lot of blood vessel, nerves, and artery and veins and lymphatic vessels to reach the GI tract wall. Okay, so that is the submucosa. Submucosa has a lot of glands which produce mucus and some enzymes. After the submucosa, you have muscularis externa. Sometimes you just call muscularis layer. Muscularis externa has in a small intestine two layers: longitudinal muscle outside and circular muscle inside. When longitudinal muscle contracts, let's see if it is longitudinal muscle. If it contracts, what happens? You reduce the length of the GI tract. When circular muscle, which is, so longitudinal muscles are arranged in the length of the GI tract, whereas circular muscle is arranged around the circumference of the GI tract. So when longitudinal muscle contract, it decreases the length of the GI tract. When circular muscle contract, It reduces the diameter of the GI tract. Okay? And to control these glands in the submucosa and the muscle contraction in the muscularis externa, there are intrinsic local nerve plexus, which has its own generation and conduction of action potential, as well as they are modified by autonomic nervous system. Okay, so here, what are those nerve plexus? The nerve plexus between two layers of muscularis externa, longitudinal and circular, are called myenteric nerve plexus, and the nerve plexus between the submucosa and the circular muscle layer is called submucosal nerve plexus. Myenteric plexus control the activity of two layers of these smooth muscles, and submucosal nerve plexus controls the secretion of glands in the submucosa. Okay, so these are the histology of the alimentary canal. 4 layers: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and muscularis externa, and I left outermost layer. The outermost layer is called serosa. Serosa is like peritoneum. Peritoneum is like homologous to the pleura of the lungs. You remember lungs was covered by pleura. Similarly, our GI tract is also covered by similar serous membrane that is called serosa, which is epithelium and connective tissue. So outside is epithelium, which is lying on the connective tissue, and it has 2 layers we're going to talk about later. One, which is attached to the wall, is called visceral peritoneum, and the another, which is attached to the body wall, is called parietal peritoneum. And when they fuse together, we call them mesentery. You can see the mesentery here. Through this mesentery, all the artery, veins, nerves enter in the wall of your GI tract. Okay. We talked about these myenteric nerve plexus, submucosal nerve plexus, and then innervation is sympathetic and parasympathetic motor fibers, plus the sensory fibers from the GI tract wall. So when you have a stretch in the GI tract wall, sensory fibers takes it. Like when you eat food, what happens in your stomach enlarge, and then a stretch in the wall take the sensory to your brain, and you feel like you are satisfied. So sometimes if you have a habit of eating a lot more and more, then you need more stretch to get the same satiety in your brain. That's why if you want to reduce the amount of food you want to eat, do it slowly. First, eat less, a bite less, and then a bite less next day. And then later, your bites are less now. And even a less amount of food will cause the same stretch, and the sensory neuron will go to your hypothalamus and give you sense of satisfaction, so you don't eat more. Okay. Peritoneal and peritoneum cavity. So peritoneum is homologous to the pericardium and pleura in the heart and the lungs. So they are a serous membrane which produce serous fluid, and there are 2 types of peritoneum: the visceral peritoneum and parietal peritoneum. Visceral peritoneum is invested on the surface of GI tract, means invested on the esophagus, invested on the stomach, invested on the intestine. Okay, and that's why that's the visceral peritoneum, surrounds digestive organ. And parietal peritoneum, on the other hand, attached to the body wall, and a space between these 2 peritoneum is called peritoneal cavity. That is a slit-like potential space which contains some serous fluid, and when your intestine contract, relax, they rub with each other, and these fluid protect them from over friction and allows the space to move during contraction and relaxation. So this is simplified version of the peritoneal cavity and peritoneum. I don't want you to be worried much about peritoneum because peritoneum is very complex alignment. So what happens, like tubular organs, if you see the embryogenesis of digestive system, they develop as a tube, and then there is several twists in the tubes, like when they make esophagus, when they make stomach, when they make intestine, there is twisting. And then some other tubular organ like renal system organs, reproductive system organs, they also twist. Okay, when they twist, they make double layer, and some of the twisting pushes some organs behind the peritoneum, and those organs are retroperitoneal, and you're going to see that later. Okay, so the peritoneum are double membrane. So you hear this is the transverse section of abdominopelvic cavity here, and then you are looking from, so this is the gastrointestinal tract, and you see the red line on attached on it, that is visceral peritoneum. This red line goes, and then it is attached to the body wall, continuous and attached to the body wall. So this lining is which peritoneum, which is outside. Parietal peritoneum. You see? So from this side, this is going and attached to the wall. This is parietal peritoneum. Similarly, from other side of the tract also goes outside and attached to the wall, parietal peritoneum. But when they are going posteriorly to the posterior body wall, they become double layer. And that double layer of the mesentery is called, double layer of peritoneum is called mesentery. So mesentery is a double layer of peritoneum. What does it do? It holds organs in place, like intestine is hold on the body wall. They also store fat. A lot of fat are attached to it and provides a route for circulatory vessels and nerves. Through this double layer, as you see here, if you go back and see, through this layer, mesentery, you see a lot of blood vessels, nerves, artery getting inside. Okay, so through this double layer, a lot of blood vessels, nerves enter in the wall of GI tract. Sometimes what happens, there is some organ like stomach, liver. You see here, there is intestine, alimentary canal organ. So this is double membrane behind the organ, that is called dorsal mesentery. And sometimes there is in front of the, so same visceral peritoneum comes here, becomes double layer, then divide and goes around the liver or the stomach, and then again attached with double layer to the anterior abdominal wall. So these are also mesentery, and these two mesentery, which is in the front of the alimentary canal, are called ventral mesentery. Okay. There are only two dorsal mesentery, one from the two only ventral mesentery, the one from the stomach, liver, and another from the stomach. Okay, so that is the mesentery. Now you can see here, this is the transverse section of your body at the level of liver and stomach. And you can see some of the organs are invested by two layers of the peritoneum, and some are absolutely out of this peritoneum. So the organs which are covered by peritoneum, we call them intraperitoneal organs, like liver is intraperitoneal, stomach is intraperitoneal, a lot of small intestine parts of intraperitoneal, but some of the organs are behind extraperitoneal, and those organs are called retroperitoneal. For example, kidney, both kidneys are not covered by peritoneum, and they are retroperitoneal. That's why kidney has high chance of getting easy infection from the microorganism, because it is not protected by peritoneum. That's why there is some other covering, natural covering of the kidney to protect it, like perirenal fat, perirenal fossa, very tough connective tissue which holds the kidney from outside. Okay. So there are peritoneal organs and retroperitoneal organs. Peritoneal organs covered by peritoneum. Retroperitoneal organs not covered by peritoneum. Here is some of the ventral mesentery and dorsal mesentery. So here, the lesser curvature of the stomach and the the mesentery is coming. And attached to the dorsal side here, and then there is liver coming from the liver, and then so these two are lesser omentum from the lesser curvature, and the ligamentum teres, which called here, don't worry about that. That comes, and they are ventral mesentery, which is attached to the ventral surface of the abdominal wall. Otherwise, most of them are dorsal mesentery, but greater omentum is a dorsal mesentery, but it is so long, double membrane, that it hangs from the greater curvature of the intestine and covers pretty much whole anterior surface of the small intestine, and they are padded with a lot of fat. And this is the main structure which stores fat. Okay. This is the sagittal section through the abdominal pelvic cavity and so the mesentery wall. So you see here. Let's see here. This is the lesser omentum here. Falciform ligament from the liver, transverse mesocolon, greater omentum from the greater curvature of the stomach. This one. All you see how big this is. And then visceral peritoneum in other. You don't need to remember these peritoneal structure because this is complex and you will not be asked in exam. Okay. So now mouth and associated structure. In the mouth, you have the oral cavity. Then you have teeth, you have vestibule. This is the opening in the mouth, upper lip, lower lip. And you have uvula, which is the boundary between the nasopharynx and the oropharynx. And then oropharynx is here. Then you can see this is the epiglottis, which covers the larynx during swallowing, and then esophagus goes down. Esophagus is a muscular tube which is usually collapse when you are not swallowing. When you open your mouth, you can see the structure here. So this is the uvula. This is the tongue here, then the teeth. And you can see the duct of submandibular gland, which is the gland under the mandible. Which opens just under your tongue. And this is the mandible and all the teeth here, tongue. This is the frenulum of the tongue. That's why we call it lingual frenulum, which holds the, some people has like completely attached here. There is no movement, and that is called tongue tie. And these people have a hard time talking and mixing the food. Okay. This is the hard palate. And if you go posterior, you have soft palate. Tongue is made up of interlacing fascicles of skeletal muscle. It is voluntary muscle. That's why you can move the tongue. They grips food and reposition it during the mixing. Helps from some consonant sounds while speaking. And these have intrinsic muscles, which is within the tongue, and then some other muscles which are outside the tongue. They are called extrinsic muscles. And frenulum secures the tongue to the floor of the mouth. Okay. The tongue has here this palatopharyngeal arch, and then epiglottis, you see behind the tongue, which flaps back and cover the larynx during swallowing. And then the 1/3 of the tongue is in the pharynx, you can see here. that is called the posterior part from here, platoglossal arch, and then this lingual tonsils. These all are the lymph nodes in these buds. And then there is taste buds. They are the sulcus terminalis. It is behind this sulcus terminalis is posterior part of the tongue, and this is interior part of the tongue. So this is circumvallate papilla, filiform papilla, and fungiform papilla with the superior surface of the tongue. Okay, so these papillas have the taste buds. So you see here, filiform papilla has no taste buds. So filiform, here you go, filiform. This filiform papilla has no buds, but fungiform and circumvallate has. Okay. Teeth can be classified into two groups: deciduous teeth, which is only 20 in number, and that start appearing at the age of 6 months, and then start going away from the like 6 years of 4 to 6 years of age. And permanent teeth is 32 in number, most erupt by end of adolescence. And there is dental formula shorthand to indicate which teeth is what. So like if we say 2C, sorry, 2I, 1C, 2P, 3M means this is second incisor, first canine, second premolar, third molar. Okay, so here you go. In the deciduous or milk teeth, there is incisors because it incises the food. Canine, the tooth like dog teeth. Molars, tooth like mortar. And you have this in parenthesis age when they erupt. And they are same in other side and upper and lower teeth. In permanent teeth, you can see here incisors, 2, canine, and then premolar, and then molar. There are 2 premolar and 3 molars. The last molar is called wisdom tooth, which appear in last, that is around 70 to 25 years of age. Sometimes it is like impacted wisdom tooth and it causes a lot of pain and you have to take it out. So if you take out the teeth, you can see the teeth which you can see outside is called crown of the teeth, and teeth which is embedded is called the root of the tooth. And you can see the structure here. You see, it is like a fork inside molars. When you give a longitudinal section through the teeth, what do you see? This is the root, neck, and crown. So the root is attached in the bony socket of mandible and maxilla. And this bony socket attaching the tooth through the ligament, and that ligament is called periodontal ligament. And then tooth has the dentin, and in the center you have root canal or pulp cavity, which contains blood vessel, artery, nerve, lymphatic vessels. In the neck, the mucus, gingiva, gum, and some connective tissue covers the junction of root and crown. The crown has the dental tubules and the dentin, and which is covered by enamel. Enamel is the hardest connective tissue which covers the teeth. When you have cavity in your teeth, that means you have eroded the enamel and the dentins, and sometimes it reaches your pulp cavity, and that's the time it hurts a lot. Like even a cold air, cold food can give you hypersensitivity. And if it is infection spread in this cavity, then you have to do root canal. Okay. The salivary glands are 3 pairs: parotid gland, submandibular gland, and sublingual gland. Parotid gland has a duct which opens lateral to the second molar, upper second molar. So first molar, second molar, outside the second molar in your oral cavity, outside the oral cavity, in between your the side of your teeth, it opens. Whereas submandibular gland opens under your tongue into the duct. Whereas sublingual glands, you see, they have several 8 to 12 ducts that opens under the tongue, and they all produce saliva. This is the histology. We're going to talk about that later. So this is all about the first part of digestive system. So what we talked, we discussed the GI tract, the accessory organs, which are they, what is the plan, what is the histology. Then we talked about the peritoneum, which covers the GI tract, and then some of the histology of the GI tract wall. Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Please, I have a question. Please. So my question is that if there's a tooth infection, can it spread to the